Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ask the CEO with Avrohom. Today, I'd like to introduce a very special guest. He's the founder of CadDo, a company that provides data-driven insights and concentrated intelligence to organizations and individuals who care about sustainability as much as profitability. As part of this discussion, we will share how their partnership with Microsoft, their use of Azure, and the Azure Marketplace have empowered them to scale and grow their business. It is my pleasure to welcome Marcus Hanke. Welcome, Marcus.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be with you.
It's a pleasure having you today. You know, Marcus, I'm really excited to be speaking to you today. This is such an exciting topic and a very important one. And just to give some background to our discussion, the United Nations enacted 17 goals for sustainability to be attained by the year 2030. This is known as the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, as they're commonly known. No matter what side of the political spectrum you're on, everyone can agree that sustainability is in our best interest. I mean, for example, having things like clean air, clean water, elimination of hunger are good things to have. Yet the perception out there is that sustainability will cost me money, which is why I love your company's description about serving organizations who care about sustainability as much as profitability. And talking about profitability, nothing says profits like financial services. What are the challenges that financial services companies struggle with regarding managing a profitable business that's also sustainable friendly?
Well, it's an interesting topic and question, and hopefully I'll try and answer from my personal perspective that should be the company as well. So financial service organisations are faced with a dilemma of making returns for their pension holders and their investors. And you've had, over the last decade, in particular the last 5 years, a huge amount of money that's flown into sustainable investments. So whether you're a pension fund or a family office, you don't want to be associated, or in the main, you're trying to move away from assets that give risk and create either environmental, social, or governance issues. So they're looking to try and understand which companies are performing in the right way and are paying homage to these sustainable development goals. The investment community have taken it on one step further and created ESG, which is a real alignment through to the SDGs, but it gets specific around scoring each asset type or each organisation against an ESG matrix: environmental, social, and governance. You know, there's a lot of school of thought and there's a lot of things being written by acclaimed academics, economics that are key in terms of what are driving these ESG scores. The easiest one is governance, and the school of thought is if you're a well-run, well-governed company, your returns are going to be greater. You are informing your investor base of everything that's going on in the company better than anybody else. And these relative companies that have sort of taken the ESG mantra on and started to comply with a lot of the frameworks that are out there, because there is no clear regulation that governs the reporting of ESG, they tend to attract higher ratings. However, you know, that starts to fall down when you look at the current situation that we're in. The first quarter of this year, you know, nearly $400 billion, left the asset market in terms of single line equities. And at the same time, ESG organizations and friendly companies saw an inflow of some $40 billion US. So, you know, there's a significant amount of money now invested into these ESG organizations and asset types against the backdrop of a general flow out of money. And, in times like we are now with the COVID situation or a downturn in economic, people fly to safety. And, with ESG rated assets, there's more information available. The financial organizations are just trying to move to safety. However, it starts to become unpinged when, if you look at a typical ESG score, you associate bad ESG scores with oil and airlines. Well, it doesn't take a lot to sort of, compute what's gone on in the first quarter. Nobody's out in the cars. Airline industry is facing, catastrophic disaster. So any portfolios that were not invested in oil and airlines have done quite well. You can see that from a market perspective. The difficulty for financial service organizations is really, let's get behind these sort of macro trends that exist and downturns. We need to understand in detail what these organizations are really, really about What are they doing from an ESG and an SDG perspective? What does it look like from a long run perspective rather than a short-term perspective? And that is the sort of crux of what financial service organizations are trying to understand, and then balance off the sort of profitability and the returns that they need to make to their investors against what are the sort of environmental goals their investors have, and how they've asked them and instructed them to invest their funds on their behalf.
So let's talk about how we go about solving these challenges. Your company, CadDo, recently launched a new offering on the Azure Marketplace called CadDo ESG. Tell us about it and how it addresses some of these challenges we just discussed.
So from the very largest to the very smallest financial institutions across the world, they're awash with data and information. There are data providers such as Morgan Stanley and Sustainalytics, to name but a few, that are selling them data. And the very largest financial institutions will probably buy 6, 7, 8 different data providers, data sources, and they bring it all together. Then they have the enormous task of interpreting all this data and aligning it, as well as using their own research teams, using their own mathematicians to create complex mathematical models that include all this data, that allows them to fine grain and refine all this data. Now, the ESG data that they're receiving is continuously changing. There's continuous updates. Companies don't stand still, just like strategy. They have to respond to their environment, they have to respond to social interactions, and they have to respond to governance issues within the company themselves. So how do you interpret that data at clock speeds that financial service organizations have to work on to be able to make investment decisions that support the returns that they've signed up, their investees have signed up to make work by placing them in control of their funds. What we've done at CadDo is recognize these industry problems, that they're awash with data. How do they get hold of that data and information in a very methodical, systematic way? How do they align it? How do they sort it? How do they refine it? And how do they apply their own knowledge, their own experience with their own people within the organization, so that they've got a ready-made ESG analysis of all the assets that they have under management. And that's what we started out to do. And it's, that comes back to our passion as individuals, the people that set up this business as well, from an all stakeholder point of view, not just the shareholders and myself, but also the people that work in the organization. We're passionate about sustainability. And, our goal was to provide a mechanism and a solution that organizations and individuals could use to put potentially move the needle within a corporate sense, because there's only so much governments can do. And we firmly believe this is going to come down to organizations making a difference. And, sustainability is not a nice to have anymore. It's a must have. And there's got to be granular information made available that can be quite clearly understood, even by the layman, in terms of the performance and the ESG performance of these individual companies and these individual assets. And that's what we set out to do, and to deliver a solution that can take the complexity out of all this data that's been pushed and being purchased by these organizations, that has to be interpreted by your pension holders and your individuals that are on the street.
I love the way you said that about making it understandable to the layperson, because I think the average layperson might have a hard time understanding all the intricacies of the financial information. And like you said about the SDGs becoming prevalent by the organizations, not by the government, I think it actually goes deeper than that, where it's going to be the individual pension holders, the individual account holders that drive this demand to the organizations that they do business with, who in turn will make those changes with regards to sustainability. So it boils down to the individuals, people like you and me, who do business with companies. We have the choice who we do business with. And if the companies that we do business with support our, I don't want to say the word agenda, but more of our worldview, of our values, then they will accommodate us. And it's really that simple.
Yeah. So, I mean, from our perspective, at a very high level, we support financial service organizations with a very clear processing solution around asset selection. So they're able to take all this data in and then work with your pension holders. Even if you and I had our pensions held with these financial institutions, you could very easily use our technology to select the asset portfolio that you want to invest in, set the criteria. You may want to have nothing to do with the oil industry, have nothing to do with the arms industry, have nothing to do with the airline industry. Okay, what does that leave for me to invest in? And what then are my relative weightings around the investment preferences that I have? And what we're able to do is take all the market data that they've purchased and apply their investment choices to that to work out a portfolio. You've got a complete system of record that you can actually work with and understand. And also, the pension funds, the large corporations that put, billions, if not trillions of dollars to work with these financial organizations, how do they enforce the investments that they want to see? And that then becomes a two-way perspective that you get investor-led reports and you know where your money is and your preferences are being acted upon.
This is really interesting. How would a company use your solution with Azure?
I mean, it's very simple now. I mean, we've spent a lot of time with Microsoft. They've been, not pushed them. They've been great in terms of getting us onboarded into the marketplace. It's very easy now in terms of organisations to procure the solution directly from the market space and then go live with a service intervention from ourselves or from our partners. And a global corporate, a global financial institution can be live in weeks. The whole difficult scenario of being able to deploy technology is gone now with the cloud solution. This is instantly available 24/7, 365 days a year. It's not a click and collect, but it's pretty close to click and collect. If you go with, the standard solution that we push out, whether it's asset selection or investor-led reports, it really is pretty close to a click and collect with an intervention package from us and a global organisation the size of BlackRock or Bank of New York can be live within weeks. You're talking about rapid deployment of it. Now you have to stay the right side of their security protocols that they've got set up as an organisation, and Microsoft are a global corporation that has taken all this on board and provided an Azure environment that meets all the requirements and the security standards that these global financial institutions have. So for us, it's been a phenomenal move forward for us and an ability to get into markets and to support organisations that have got this growing need for ESG analysis and management of the information. And more importantly, their clients, you or I, and also the corporations that are putting the pension funds with them are calling for this action to be taken and this information to be pushed back. So they're all on a level playing field. And we just, iron out all of the black magic and make it pretty clear for investors to understand and for financial institutions to manage ESG.
How can customers find out more about CadDo ESG and procure it through the Azure Marketplace?
So we have a dedicated page on the marketplace. We're bringing to market collateral with Microsoft to ensure that there's perfect information about what the solution is all about. It's very quick to make contact with us. We, in the first instance, do a very short demonstration with a client where we take them through a generic example, picking on asset selection or investor-led reports. We do that within 30 minutes. The next call to action is for them just to provide us a subset of their data that they'd be happy for us to work with. And we turn around probably in about 2 days an environment that they can start to play with, let's say. Once they're happy with the way that it performs, then they can go forward and make a purchase and go live with the solution once they've undertaken all of the setup. It's very, very straightforward. From the largest to the smallest institutions, it really is seamless now.
And is there a link that people can go to?
There's a link online for the Azure Marketplace. It's CadDo ESG, and the solution is there. Hit the button, and we'll be in contact within minutes. And as I said, we can get onto a demonstration, send us over the data, and then we can move forward with a firm commercial offer for these organisations. It's completely plumbed in and access to all the Microsoft markets that are out there. And the deployment is pretty seamless across their Azure environment.
Great. I'm really excited about this technology. I believe very strongly in SDGs and in sustainability. I would love to hear any case studies that you might have about how your solution helps businesses with sustainability.
I mean, we started out life working with corporations. It's been an interesting path whereby profitability was the guiding rule and the whole notion of being able to understand customer product profitability. Then there's been a shift to understand, okay, from a corporation point of view, what are we doing? What are we generating from the sustainability? And for a corporate, this comes down to carbon, waste, and water. So how much carbon, how much waste are we going to generate producing these products for these customers? Then you start to roll forward to look at ESG analysis to understand, okay, what does this do from an investment perspective? Now, the world has got prolific around understanding these vital information flows and sources that are out there. And us as an organization have had to bridge the gap on both sides. But fairly, the emphasis of all our attention is within financial service and supporting these organisations with the out of the box ESG solution that we have.
Great. How has partnering with Microsoft helped CadDo scale and grow your business?
I mean, we're a startup business, and we joined the Microsoft Startup Program. They helped us understand Azure, some key learnings so that we could actually use the environment and rapidly develop and rapidly deploy our solution. Then it's the ability that we now have to transact with these end state customers. There are not too many organizations in the world that are not touched somehow by Microsoft. They've got established procurement processes in place, and we're able to take advantage of those, and we're able to utilize them. So the organization, from our organization, a startup organization getting access, global access on a global basis to all these corporations is something that would have taken us a long time to set about ourselves. But in all fairness to Microsoft, they're about providing benefit to their client and getting greater utilization from the Azure environment. And we saw this early on, and we decided to go with Microsoft as our chosen partner. And we're fortunate enough to be placed in the startup program and then run through the various stages of that, right the way through to having a transact business now on the Azure Marketplace, which we're at the very start of, but we see a huge significant growth opportunity for us, and also the ability to proliferate our message and support clients across the world.
And how could people find out more about Microsoft partnership opportunities for financial services solutions?
I mean, Microsoft have got a dedicated financial services team. It's a key call to action for them. The whole world, there's a lot of money wrapped up in financial services that's under management. They're a core part of the fabric of how we exist. And as I said, Microsoft have got a dedicated team, dedicated resources. They've got account management structures all throughout the organisation to support these very organisations. So it's as easy as getting onto Microsoft.com and looking for the financial services, or there'll be a direct contact with some account representative, whether it's an account manager or a technical perspective, that's working with the clients to make sure that they're getting the maximum value and utility out of the Azure service. And also picking up organisations like ourselves and spotting them. They're at a very key juncture with the Azure Marketplace to spot the startups that have got very innovative, leading-edge solutions that can save a client millions and millions of dollars and bring about an important service that's being demanded. And I think that's what we see, that they've picked ourselves up. They've recognised the importance of sustainability, the importance of ESG analysis to financial services, and we're fortunate enough to be working with Microsoft, its marketing effort and its access to client teams that they have on a global basis. They're taking it very seriously, and the key thing is about providing benefit to their end clients, which is great from a CadDo perspective.
Great. And how do people connect with you?
CadDo.com, and just go to contact us. And as I said, we'll be in contact. I'm also on LinkedIn, so anybody wants to reach out to me personally, I'm there and available. but the chosen method for us is just go to CadDo.com or contact us through the Azure Marketplace. Either one will get to us and we'll pick it up very quickly, or indeed speak to, if it's financial services, one of the account team from Microsoft, and they'll be able to push the contact through to us, and hopefully we can be supporting them as quickly or as neatly as they need.
Wonderful. And I'm going to put all that into the show notes so people can just click on your website and get right to you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Marcus, do you have any parting words of wisdom that you'd like to share with the audience?
I mean, the key thing for us is that sustainability is, we don't see it as a choice, and people are generally now understand that they have to do the right things. So from a general population, we have to take this forward and look at future generations in terms of, what are they going to be left with? And we see the whole notion of being able to move the needle as much as we can in this whole era of sustainability and transparency across global corporations. And we began servicing and supporting financial service organizations. That's the key takeaway that we have from this. We are firmly trying to move the needle in the sustainability space, bring transparency to these information flows, and make it easy for people to understand.
Marcus, thank you so much for sharing your time and your wisdom. I really enjoyed having you on the show.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.